Unit 5, Trigonometry. Our first topic that we're going to be discussing is equations of circles. This equation consists of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. R is the radius and the center is hk. When graphing these circles, use the same formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. For example, if you had x minus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 4, you would start off by finding the center hk, which is the opposite of that and the opposite of that, so 2, negative 4. Then you find the square root of the radius, which is 2. Then you graph the center 2, negative 4, and move 2 up, 2 down, 2 left, and 2 right. Then you have radians to degrees. The rule for this is to multiply by 180 over pi. If you had 10 pi over 3, you'd multiply by 180 over pi. That would give you 1800 pi over 3 pi. Then you could cancel out the 2 pi's and you'd be left with 600 degrees. Then if you wanted to do the opposite of that, degrees to radians, use the rule multiply by pi over 180. For example, if you had 30 degrees, you could multiply that by pi over 180, and you'd be left with 30 pi over 180. And then to simplify that, you would end up with pi over 6.
Next, we have our unit circle. Within the unit circle, you have points, radians, and then degrees. Everything's going to be out of 360. If you want to find your cosine, you look at your x. If you want to find your sine, you look at your y. And if you want to find your tangent, you look at y over x.
And then the unit circle is just like a graph. You have your 4 quadrants.
Next, we have sine. Your sine will always have a period and an amplitude. And within sine, your period will always be 2 pi. For our example, we have 2 sine x minus 1. Your amplitude will be 2. Your vertical shift will be minus 1. So you know that you have to move down 1. Your critical points for sine will always be 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and 0. With your critical points, you multiply your amplitude, which is 2, and then subtract your vertical shift. And you're subtracting it because you know it's down 1, and you'll get negative 1, 1, negative 1, negative 3, and negative 1. When graphing, you will always have the points pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi.
And of course, 0.
Yes, 0. So your new points will be pi over 2, 1, pi, negative 1, 3 pi over 2, negative 3, 2 pi, negative 1, and 0, negative 1. You will then proceed to graph your final endpoints, and then you can't forget to curve your graph. Next, we have cosine. With cosine, sine and cosine kind of work the same way. You will always have a period and you will always have an amplitude. Your period will always be 2 pi. Our example, we have negative 3 cosine x plus 1. Your amplitude is negative 3. Now that you have a negative amplitude, you know that your graph will reflect across the across the x-axis. And then you also have your vertical shift of a positive 1, so you know you have to move up 1. Your critical points for cosine are slightly different. They are 1, 0, negative 1, 0, and 1. With your critical points, you will change them to their opposite, so it'll be negative 1, 0, 1, 0, negative 1. Proceed to multiply them by negative 3, your amplitude, 3, 0, negative 3, 0, 3. And then you will continue to add 1 for your vertical shift and get 4, 1, negative 2, 1, 4. Then, for your cosine, your points are going to be the same. For sine, there will be pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Your new points will be 0, 4, pi over 2, 1, 3 pi over 2, 1, pi, negative 2, and then 2 pi, 4. You will continue to graph your critical points or your endpoints, and then don't forget to curve your graph. Last but not least, we have tangent. You will also always have a period and amplitude for tangent. Your period, however, is slightly different. It is now always going to be pi for tangent. Tangent period is always pi. For our example, we have 3 tangent x plus 2. Your amplitude will be 3. Your vertical shift will be positive 2, so you know you're going to go up 2. Your critical points for tangent are also slightly different. It's undefined, -1, 0, 1, and undefined. With these points, you will multiply your amplitude as usual and get undefined, -3, 0, 3, undefined. You also add your 2, which is your vertical shift, and get undefined, -1, 2, 5, undefined. With your graph, you will have different points. You will have negative pi over 2, which is always going to be undefined, so you identify that by having a dotted line. You have negative pi over 4, 0, pi over 4, and pi over 2, which will also be undefined, and you identify that by a dotted line. You will then proceed to graph your new critical points. So you'll have negative pi over 4 and -1, 0, 2, and pi over 4, 5. So you will plot -1, plot 2, and then plot 5. Now, however, for tangent, you will draw your line shaped like this. It will always be shaped like this for tangent. For sine and cosine, however, it'll be shaped curved. For tangent, shaped like what? Shaped like this.
The end.
Chris and Hollie.